Hello and welcome from Buenos Aires, Argentina, to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where Nate has conversations with entrepreneurs doing business across borders and the people who support them, with a focus on those that have some connection to Latin America. My name is Josefina Dominguez-Ino, and I am an editor at LatinList, a proud sponsor of the Crossing Borders podcast. Sign up for our weekly updates on latinlist.com to get a summary of the week's biggest headlines in Latin American tech news. Today's episode, we're doing things differently by going back to previous episodes featuring founders from the Magma Partners portfolio to highlight the stories of some of the region's most successful entrepreneurs. We hope you enjoy this episode featuring 11 entrepreneurs from Magma Partners portfolio giving advice to founders from Latin America on getting started. Kicking off the conversation, we have Sean Park, co-founder of GroupRaise, an online reservation platform that facilitates fundraising events across the restaurant industry. In this episode, he talks about the advice he would give to his younger self.
I guess one thing that I wouldn't say regret, but I tend to think a lot about my learnings and whether that was, sufficient or whether that, where they came from and how they come from. So how can I maximize that, right? And I think in my early years, I just didn't know how to learn. You got to learn to learn. And that, I think that came later. And it took time, not only because I was, remote alone in Canada and, the things were there. I mean, I don't think things were that different, in 2011 or 12, where I had access to internet and everything was there. It was just that I wish I told myself that, there are resources that you have to be more diligent about reaching out to them. And I think I was a bit lazy and also at the same time cocky about basically learning from the internet and reading. And those things I am doing a lot these days because I know how important they are. But I was just too young to really learn and be a better leader because I guess I didn't have that much of a push from the people that I had to lead. It was all, just four of us, all leaders. So, I think that would be learn to learn.
Next, we have Matías Rivera, founder and CEO of Fanatiz, a streaming platform for sports fans, who talks about lessons learned from being an entrepreneur.
There's always the same pattern of resistance to change and resistance to something new, and just having to push through and not giving up. Be it in fundraising, be it in starting a nonprofit, being it in starting a governmental program. So I think thankfully we pushed through, and I think Nico Shea, who's kind of like the founder, the leading founder of Startup Chile, he's incredibly stubborn and doesn't take no for an answer, which is great. And I learned enormously from him and from that experience. So I would say that's an important takeaway and something that can be applicable across all kinds of things. So don't give up and just continue pushing.
Next we have Kevin Valdez, also a co-founder of GroupRaise, who talks about how the advice his father gave him has shaped the way he approaches life.
Whatever you're working on, always working on, be passionate about it, but don't waste any time, right? Because time is so precious. So he didn't say it in an academic way of time value, like the most expensive currency you have is time. But he did have that fundamental understanding of how precious time is. And so that's something that he's engraved into my sisters, myself, really. And he's always been very disciplined about doing things right. That's kind of his some of his the way he sort of lived his business life, if you will, and personal life as well. So he always wanted to make sure. I mean, it goes all the way back to he had the vision of bringing his family to the U.S. and give them an opportunity. So it's all about seizing that opportunity, right? So even today, when my sisters are in college, one of them is they're both in university now. And it's all about seizing that opportunity, right? So we're on this mission to seize the opportunity in front of us, right? And it's like a is just engraved. It's just like a fact of life that every day you wake up and you go out and seize the opportunity, because you have no time to waste, right? So like, it sounds kind of corny, but like, when I see other kind of, because I've always been in this mindset, when that's not the case around me, when I see around and I find out that that's not usually the case, it's just a little interesting to see.
Our next guest is Jack Fischl, co-founder of Keteka, a marketplace where travelers can book authentic local experiences in Latin America. He shares with us what he would have told his younger self when Keteka was just getting started.
There's a lot of parts of the business that we ended up needing to do in a very heavy-handed way that I kind of assumed in the beginning would end up getting automated really quickly. So one of those is relationships with the tour operators and kind of connecting the customers with them. Another is customer service, and how much time and kind of like how important that is to the customer experience. And the other is we still don't have a CTO. We've never consistently had one. And we spent a lot of time over the last few years, trying to find that person, trying to vet, get some good tech talent on the team, which is not, I'm not saying that's a waste of time, but I think related to all three of those, one thing that I kind of wish I could just tell myself is, hey, listen, you need to accept that you're going to be just spending a lot more time than you anticipate in these areas in terms of like just maintaining the website, talking to customers, and just going for sales. And so just accept that, put your head down, and just get some sales. I think there's so much that I wish I could teach my old self, but I think if I had to put in a nutshell, just giving 2014 Jack that acceptance would have allowed us, I think, to move a little bit faster, and not be trying to do so many things at once in the beginning.
Emmanuel Oquendo is CEO of BrainHi, a mobile app that helps patients book doctor's appointments using AI solutions. In this episode, he shares some of the lessons he's learned on what it means to be a CEO.
What advice would I give myself if I was starting out? I would say that I am, me, Emmanuel, as the CEO, I am the biggest bottleneck of BrainHi. The CEO is the biggest bottleneck of a startup. If I become the best CEO of the world, BrainHi is gonna be one of the top-notch companies. So I think that embracing that from the beginning, and really in particular, making sure that as a CEO, I get out of my comfort zone continuously. Because if I personally, I am as a CEO, I am the biggest obstacle for growth in BrainHi. In the same way, if I personally get out of my comfort zone continuously and challenge myself as a human, I know that will create good impact for BrainHi. So and really that's something that's my motto. That's something that I think about. I think that applies to all of the employees in BrainHi, and it's something that we discuss continuously. But I live about that. I live thinking about that. How many times did I get out of my comfort zone today? Because if you face those fears, there's good things at the other side. So just making sure that I'm out of my comfort zone continuously, it would be the first thing that I would do.
Our next guest is Cory Siskind, founder and CEO of Base Operations, a platform that helps companies keep their global workforce safe and connected. Cory shares some insights on what it takes to build the right team in the early stages of a startup.
The most important lesson I've learned is about finding and hiring the right people. And that's really challenging. I think a lot of people talk about that. But finding people that you can really trust. And at this early stage, I don't think entrepreneurs should be doing a lot of managing. I think they should hire people who they inherently trust to go off and execute on as long as you're aligned on what the goals are. So I think finding those right people and really putting the time into interviewing people and spending a lot of time with them, and then letting go of people that aren't adding to the direction that everyone's trying to go in. So finding the right people.
Daniel Bilbao is co-founder of Truora, an online platform that provides instant background checks all across Latin America. In this episode, he talks about things he would have done differently at the beginning of his entrepreneurial journey.
I would have started earlier. I was so focused on my career. I started founding companies at, I want to say 32 or 33. I wish I'd started at 22. or 25. I genuinely do. It doesn't matter if you don't do well. The amount of learnings that you get are so valuable, and if you're a decent engineer or a decent business person, you'll get so much out of that. It's better experience. It feels like the road less traveled, but I would have started earlier. So if you're thinking about starting a company, I think that there's no better time in Latin America to start a company than right now. There has never been a better time, so you might as well give it a shot.
Next up, we have Pedro Pablo del Campo, partner at Magma Partners, who shares sage advice applicable to any entrepreneur in the world, not just in Latin America.
Yeah, definitely. I think the most important one will be a more proactive listener. Basically, learn how to listen and also surround yourself with mentors, and do not think that I know everything, because you understand that you don't stop learning from other people's experience. So be humble. There's nothing better than to have a great mentor to learn or to talk to. You can have multiple mentors for your personal life, business advices, and so on. So basically, yeah, those two would be super useful.
Marta Forero is founder of Ubits, a NetTech platform that offers courses to corporate companies to train their workforces. She shares valuable advice for women looking to expand their business and raise money in the US.
You need to learn about your company a lot, and you need to be prepared, because sometimes questions for us are tougher than for men. But we have to remember that being in a small business involves patience and time, and requires you to be in a goal each one of the days. Second, be patient. Sometimes we are always running and we want everything right now, and you have to be just like patient and know. Sometimes I know that's a bad advice, but you cannot hear everyone, because at first they start telling you like you have to do this as a woman, you have to do that. If you travel, they are going to, like, your husband or your boyfriend, it's going to be with another girl, and this and this and this, and there are a lot of things. And don't be afraid, because when you start working, people can make you feel very small, especially when you're in a male-dominated business environment. So what you need to do is be very confident, and don't let people make you doubt yourself in what you are making. I believe at first, because of you are not as confident, you believe you are going to be rejected, but it's always don't take it personally, and just get your plan, just work a lot in your plan.
Next is Diego Caicedo from Omnibank, a new bank geared towards SMEs in Latin America. He talks about what he would share with his younger self, knowing what he knows today about doing business.
Focus on revenue, diversify. Don't put all your eggs into one client. Don't put all your eggs into one product. You need to have some type of hedging in a business. You need to have multiple revenue streams. When you're client heavy, top heavy, as we would, you're at risk all the time, because it might not be with your business. It might be something fundamental changes with that client. Tomorrow, that guy decides he's coming out of the business and he's going to take you down with him. Not because he wants to, it's just because you're going to be collateral damage. So a lot of diversification, getting a lot more clients into play, diversity of funding, of different sources, I think is super relevant. If we would have looked back and said, okay, do more with more clients, never fall into the fallacy of giving exclusivity, never fall into the fallacy of those huge partnerships that will be the only way you do business. You need to always be looking at, it's great, okay, just because now we have this, we will not continue to look for more of these type of deals around, because you never know, things can change. People rotate out of companies, and then you're going to be stuck building a company that is dependent. So you have to be diversifying and looking at risk and redundancy. Everything has to be redundant. Cash flow, funding, even executive positions in the company. You never know when a CTO is going to walk out on you, and you're going to be stuck looking at, where do I hire a CTO now?
To close it off, we have Neil Coleman, advisor at Magma Partners. He shares some comforting words for anyone who is just getting started on their entrepreneurial journey.
I would tell myself that when things feel like they have gone totally wrong and it feels like the world is ending, it's never that bad, and you always get through it. And no matter how stressed you are in any given day and those around you, it's just never as bad as you think it is at the time. And to just take a deep breath and know that like the next day is a new day, and like you're gonna have a great day soon again.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of Crossing Borders with our guests Sean Park, Matías Rivera, Kevin Valdez, Jack Fischl, Emmanuel Oquendo, Cory Siskind, Daniel Bilbao, Pedro Pablo del Campo, Marta Forero, Diego Caicedo, and Neil Coleman. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a friend and give us a rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's the best way to share what's going on in Latin America's ecosystem.